Hello everyone and welcome to another ESV TV Spotlight. This is of SlayerS.CranK, our second spotlight of him. It's going to be a PvT. Should be pretty fun. Let's take a look at our player really briefly here. Of course, hailing from Korea, hailing from Team SlayerS. He is just a beast. He's an up-and-coming Protoss who really needs more eyes on him. He's got some excellent strategies, excellent play. His PvT, I really like his PvT play. He's got just a really all-around robust style. I mean, it generally ends up looking pretty standard, but he just does something slightly different from other players. Like the ordering, he ends up, usually what I've seen from him in the past, which was a couple months ago, he would go fast upgrades like double forge into Colossus, Charizard, Archon, Immortal, into a more robust late game, finally adding Templar. But he's not one of those players that usually goes like 2-base Templar or something like that. He'll usually go for the earlier upgrades into earlier Colossi, and then start mixing in that kind of nice super late game Protoss tech later on. So let's jump in and go ahead and get this game started. Here it is, guys. So this is Tal'Darim Altar, PvT, between SlayerS.CranK here, our red Protoss, in the bottom left position. That's his opponent in the bottom right, our unnamed blue Terran Raptor. Don't know whose alias that is. We're just going to assume he's some smurf of a Korean Gosu, because this is on the Korean Grandmaster ladder. And TVP on Tal'Darim Altar can be pretty scary. Sometimes, well, I mean, we don't really see this map played that much anymore since it's kind of falling out of date and everything, but since there's no ramp leading up into the main, you got to really worry about early Hellion play, just kind of run by in there. There's a lot of situations where this back area behind the expansions can be utilized to put pressure onto the natural expansion, so these positions should favor Crank just a slight amount. If he moves forward with Colossi, I can put on some pressure over here into these mineral patches. It'd be a little bit harder for Raptor to do the same thing to him and set up like siege tanks or Marine Marauder over here. Let's see if we're going to see a Nexus first, or if he'll be something a little bit more standard, like 1-gate expand. It is on the ladder, so I would expect something a little bit safer than Nexus first out of Crank. Ooh, where's that Chrono? Is he actually saving Chrono right now, for real? 13 gate going up. He didn't need to save that it wasn't a 12 gate. He's gonna throw it down with this next probe. Okay. Alright. Not the biggest deal. He did in fact go for an early scout, so understandable. But he would want to get that Chrono just a little bit later in case his pylon or his probe ends up being cut for a moment. But we're seeing a command center first from Raptor. Pretty risky build, especially on Tal'Darim Altar, where it's not even like if you end up against some early aggression, you can just lift and go up in your main behind a ramp with one bunker and a wall and be fine. This is pretty hard to hold off, and some Protoss players like to do some crazy stuff, like throw 4 probes at the command center when they scout it. Other players like to just go for just a really solid macro play of their own and chrono a lot of probes, knowing that they won't be facing early aggression. Sometimes an earlier double forge can be great to get a nice upgrade advantage over your opponent, who generally can't afford to be dropping their early E-bays, since they have a little bit too much to do to frantically defend against any possibility of any all-in. Probe's going to scout that, though. He's going to see the command center first. 2 barracks are on the way. Let's see what his response is. He's not chronoing out a Zealot or anything like that, not even making a Zealot first. We'll see if he chronos out some early Stalkers, or just tries to play a macro game himself. Does he still have all 3 probes on gas? Just 2 probes on gas. Okay, so he took 1 off. He's going to go for a little bit of an earlier Nexus here. Probably won't even be chronoing out Stalkers yet. Not even going to start Warp Gate. He just wants to get that Nexus started ASAP. Going to go for a standard macro game. But think about the fact that the Nexus is starting as the command center is finishing. So Raptor has an excellent economic lead here. He's going to be able to drop double orbital. Right as this command center finishes. Already has 1 on the way. The second one will start immediately. Notice the efficiency of this build. You don't even have to drop another supply depot. You just get that food from that command center finishing. Just 1 supply depot here. Just an awesome build. I'm curious, what is Crank planning on doing here, and why is there no bunker yet? I guess he saw. Did he see the Nexus? No scouting for Raptor. How does he not have a bunker yet? How is that? I feel like if probes had just been pulled and a Zealot first came into a Stalker chronoed, he would just be dead right now. I cannot believe this. This is baffling to me right now that a Terran would have no scouting information whatsoever and feel comfortable not dropping a bunker. Just absolutely ridiculous. But he's not going to be punished for it, since Crank's not going for early aggression and didn't chrono out a Zealot or a Stalker for that matter. So this Terran pretty lucky, I gotta say. If you do this on ladder all the time, have fun getting a lot of free losses. And wow, he's just going to go up to 5 racks before dropping any gas. So he's powering real hard. Not even 4 racks, but 5 racks after command center first. I mean, 4 racks would normally be what you do after 1 rack CC. So command center first. A little bit of a better economy here, can afford to go up to 5 barracks. He's just going to be pumping a ridiculous amount of Marines. It's not all in per se, but it's so invested. If you don't do damage, or if you lose a lot of Marines to some good force fields, you're so far behind. Your tech's delayed, your stim's delayed, your combat shield's delayed, your medevacs are delayed, your upgrades are delayed. Meanwhile, Crank going for much more standard play. 3-8 Robo is just the most standard transition after a 1-gate expand you can do. Probably see him add at least 1 Forge here in just a moment. SCV is going to scout out that there is in fact a Nexus up. He's not dealing with some type of 1-base all-in. Still, he only just found that out and still was... it wasn't even like his bunker was later than I wanted it. He threw down no bunker. No bunker all game. Without having scouted, his opponent could have been 4-gating for all he knew. Like, I find it... there's got to be something he knows that I don't know here. Because that's just like borderline insanity. Stalker is going to evade these Marines to try to do a little bit of damage here, but with that many Marines moving out, he's got to realize that it's at least a 4 racks, if not 5 racks. And that's a scary thing to know you're up against as a Protoss player. You have to warp in a couple sentries to be able to force field the ramp. You have to warp in tons of Stalkers. Generally, you're trying to get up your tech as well, and you don't really know what the Terran's doing since you haven't gotten an observer out yet. You can't really afford to make enough units, and the Stalker's caught out of position, not going to be able to have that in the main. Oh, he doesn't even get the force fields at the ramp either, so these Marines are just going to engage straight away in here, just going to pick off a pylon. A pretty nice choice. It's going to supply block the Protoss, so he can't warp in any more units right as this next warp in comes up. That's painful. Sentry almost goes down. He's got to be so careful with that Sentry. Guardian Shield goes up with the Hurt Sentry. Oh, that is pretty risky to do. If he target fires the Hurt Sentry, he could get rid of that Guardian Shield. Guardian Shield goes down. 3 sentries go down. Stalker's taking a lot of damage right now, but the Marines are going down. Unfortunately, some missed micro there by Raptor, just kind of moving back and forth with those Marines on the force field instead of moving around. Lots of Stalkers going down, but so are Marines. But that was pretty efficient for the Terran player. As you can see, not only was it cost efficient, but there's an extra kind of cost efficiency when you're taking out sentries that would be building up energy all game long that the Protoss then has to rebuild. When as a Protoss player, you can't really afford to do that. Even with quad gas, it's like, I want him getting Colossi right now. I want him getting upgrades. I can't afford to rebuild 4 sentries. Or 3 is what he had, but an ideal number of something more like 4, especially on a really wide open map like Tal'Darim. So he's going to go fast Colossi, which is a good choice when you know you're up against somebody that went 4 or 5 racks, since they just have tons and tons of Marines. But having lost those sentries is going to really hurt him, especially if he doesn't rebuild at the very least a single one. I mean, against this many Marines, you simply need Guardian Shield. It's not like, Guardian Shield helps you. You need it. It's like a necessity. So those Marines, reducing 2 damage from every single one of their fast shots is just like the biggest deal ever. Imagine adding +2 armor to your army. Oh, good. He did remake those 2 sentries, so thank you, Crank, for illustrating my point. And not just losing the game without Guardian Shield or something. And he's going to go up to 6 gates. So 6 gate on 2 base with Colossus. No upgrades, not going for +1. Can't really afford it after losing those sentries. And having a slightly late 4th gas. Overall, pretty nice hold though from Crank. He didn't lose all of his Stalkers. And Raptor's just macroing up. He's finally starting to get himself up to medevac tech. That factory on the way. Observer's going to see that it is quite late indeed. Stim, only a third of the way done. Combat Shields is already finished, though, and so is Concussive Shells. I love the map control that Crank's holding here, not letting his opponent take any, setting up a forward pylon to get ready to maybe go attack here. I wonder how many Colossi he's going to wait for. Probably 2 Colossi with range. I would have to imagine he'd wait for range if he's getting the upgrade at all. But he's already setting up that forward pylon, so you never know. He is going to see this army moving out here with his vision. Let's see how quick his responses are. You're already starting to move forward just to pick off a couple units and move back. A bit of a dangerous move when you know your opponent has Concussive Shells, so he's going to lose a Stalker for it. Gotta be careful. That's a lot of infantry. I'm really surprised our Terran player is not even going to try to move around to the side. He's just... Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to try to stim up that ramp against all those force fields. He rebuilt 4 sentries. So, wow, thank you, Crank. You making me look so smart here. What a nice guy. Unfortunately, no, never mind. He's in supply block, just dropping those pawns ahead of time. He's so smart. So good. He's already got his 2nd Colossus on the way. I love that he's keeping it hidden so the Terran doesn't scan and see the natural and see the Colossi and start making Vikings. Starting to make his first medevac. Stim is about to complete, though. Is Raptor going to go for the engagement? No, it doesn't look like it. Oh, +1 just being started here for Raptor. So, I mean, if that were, like, kind of done or done soon, you'd be in a good position. But with that +1 being pretty late and with no kind of tech to do with Vikings, or excuse me, no kind of tech to do with Colossi, this could get pretty scary. Even though Raptors seem to have a pretty big advantage early on, And economically has a pretty big advantage, having an even worker count with a Protoss, considering he also has mules on top of that. Whereas the Protoss is limited to his 2-base economy on optimal saturation. So I don't know, we'll see if he's able to hold this. Protoss attacking up a ramp. No bunkers, though. Pretty decent spread from Raptor, but not the best. In fact, a lot of these units not engaging over here. Oh no, Raptor making an unbelievably critical mistake. He loses about a third of his army. Oh, not a third, a quarter once I see those reinforcements coming, but a quarter of his army like that. He's got to pull these units back. Those force fields are so good for Crank. Nice kiting, just pulls away. He's got to wait for those force fields to disappear. Not much sentry energy left. He still has that Guardian Shield, more reinforcements. I love the reinforcing sentries as well. He knows he's going to be low on force fields. Excellent play here. With no Vikings, it's hard to snipe down the Colossi. He's trying to go for one. He picks off one Colossus, the other one's still doing so much damage, and the army from Raptor is just melting. And it looks like Crank's able to bust this down. Excellently played. Hitting before +1 finishes when there are low medevac counts and no Vikings out. Still no Vikings on the way, just medevacs being produced. And Raptor's starting to lose all of his units. He's going to be forced to pull SCVs for this engagement. That's not going to work well against Colossi and a couple Zealots in front. Immortal just being worth its weight in gold here with 11 kills as well. Colossus with 17 kills, and the GG gets called out. So well played by Crank. Raptor, he played pretty well that game, but just a couple minor mistakes. I feel like he actually could have hit a sick timing there before the Colossi were out if he had actually gone for that split and actually gone for it instead of just kind of posturing and then going back. But it was admittedly a risky position. But when he was defending the attack over here, I feel like if he had just had his whole army engaging at once, like he had a lot of his army just kind of sitting here, AFK next to his command center, while like a third of his army was segmented off and was being attacked. We never saw him use the medevac lift micro like so many excellent Terrans are doing. I think if you don't have Vikings and you're fighting against Colossi in a position like that with good force fields, you've got to put at least one medevac worth of units, not just to escape force fields and drop on the other side, but just to kind of move forward and start unloading as you move behind the Colossi to target fire the Colossi. If they try to run forward, then you can, engage, snipe it down with the rest of your army. We didn't see any of that from the Terran player. He got a little bit segmented off, and that was just great play by Crank, picking off a lot of the Terran army by itself with good force fields. And I love his willingness to rewarp in sentries. That is something you will almost never see, and it's something that really needs to be highlighted and showcased, because it's something that's hard to do as a Protoss player. If you think, all right, I'm going to warp in 3 more sentries here, and I'm not even talking about the reinforcements he made like after he lost sentries early on. I'm talking about the reinforcements while the army engagement was going on. He warped in like 3 or 4 more sentries, moved them over. I guess he was at this pylon, moved them over. And usually you don't want to do that because they only start with 50 energy. So to spend 100 gas to warp in a unit that only has 1 force field and that's it, generally isn't that good for you. But when you're in a very specific circumstance, like it's not something you would do in every PvT and every engagement. It just shows how well Crank understands in PvT engagements. When you're in this very specific circumstance where the Terran doesn't have Vikings and you have Colossi, the only way they're going to be able to beat you, really, is if they can somehow get you out of position and snipe your Colossi. Now, whether that's with flanks coming in to try to stim and snipe it, whether that's with you running out of force fields or running out of Zealots and having the units just stim forward and sniping the Colossi, or what, what other method they have available to them, Vikings popping out and dealing with them or something. Whatever it is, if you can just get it some more sentries and replenish those force fields that you're running out of energy on, and just keep them from stimming forward and sniping your Colossi, you're probably going to win the engagement. So just such an intelligent decision by Crank that I don't think I've ever seen that in a PvT before. Obviously, we've seen sentries be warped in to reinforce, but never a situation like I'm in the middle of engagement, let me warp in some sentries to get some more force fields ready to go. It just doesn't happen, so really, really cool to see. Thanks, guys, for watching. Follow more ESV TV stuffs all around at ESV TV on Twitter. You can also follow the Korean Weekly, which is the premier tournament that ESV runs. We can catch all these up-and-coming Korean pro gamers. It's just at Korean Weekly on Twitter. And, of course, twitch.tv/ESVision is our live Twitch channel, so you can catch all the live streaming on there. And I am Orb. I've been casting this. Hopefully you've been enjoying it. If so, you can follow me on Twitter at ORBTL. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.